They gathered to mourn a lost child, but when the baby moved inside the coffin, grief turned into terror. No one could explain what they saw that night. A heartbeat in the silence, a whisper calling, "Mother," and a love so powerful, even death could not end it. This is not just a story about fear. It's about a mother's love that refused to die, a bond that crossed the veil between life and the afterlife. But what happened when she answered that final call will stay with you forever. So, before we begin, take a deep breath, turn up the volume, and if stories that touch the soul and chill the heart mean something to you, then subscribe now. Because here, every story beats with life. Every tale whispers the truth that love never dies. The air inside the hall was thick with the scent of lilies and incense. Candles flickered beside the small white coffin, their flames trembling like frightened hearts. Mourners sat in silence, their faces pale under the dim, yellow light. Rain tapped softly against the windows, a steady rhythm that filled the spaces between sobs. The mother knelt near the coffin, her hands trembling as she whispered a final prayer. Her voice cracked, but the silence that followed was heavier than her words. A cold breeze slipped through the open door, brushing across the baby's face. Someone gasped. The baby's tiny hand twitched. For a moment, everyone froze, breath caught, eyes wide, minds refusing to believe what they saw. The priest stepped closer, his lips parting in disbelief. The baby's chest moved, slow, faint, unmistakable. The mother screamed, a sound that tore through the quiet room. Chairs fell, candles toppled, and the hall filled with chaos. Some rushed forward. Others stumbled back, muttering prayers under their breath. The grandfather pressed a trembling hand to his heart, his knees giving way. Outside, thunder rolled across the sky, echoing through the village. The baby's eyelids fluttered. The sound of weeping turned to cries of terror and awe. The mother reached out, her hands shaking uncontrollably, unsure whether to touch or run. The priest whispered something no one could hear, his eyes fixed on the coffin. The baby's lips parted slightly, as if to breathe or to speak. The air in the hall turned colder. The candles flickered wildly, casting long, dancing shadows on the walls. And in that terrible stillness, everyone knew something was not as it seemed. The mother's scream hung in the air, echoing off the wooden walls of the funeral hall. The priest stumbled backward, clutching the silver cross on his chest. Everyone stared at the small coffin, where the baby's hand had now lifted ever so slightly higher. The faint sound of rain outside grew louder, drumming against the roof as if the heavens themselves were trembling. A young woman fainted near the doorway. An old man whispered a prayer, his voice cracking under the weight of fear. The mother crawled closer to the coffin, her tears blurring her vision. She could not understand what her heart was telling her. Hope. Terror. Both fighting inside her chest. Her trembling fingers reached toward the baby's face, pale as moonlight and still as porcelain. She touched the cheek, warm. A soft warmth that should not exist. Her breath caught, her body shaking uncontrollably. The priest called for everyone to step back, but no one moved. Every soul in the room was frozen between disbelief and dread. The baby's eyes flickered open for a brief second, two tiny reflections of candlelight glimmering within. A sharp gasp spread through the mourners like a wave. The mother screamed again, this time not in sorrow but in something far stranger. Something between joy and horror. She lifted the baby into her arms. The child's head rolled slightly against her shoulder, mouth opening in a faint sigh. But there was no sound, no cry, no breath, just silence. And then the candles dimmed. Every single flame seemed to bend inward, flickering violently as the wind howled through unseen cracks. The priest began to chant softly in Latin, voice shaking as his words clashed with the rising storm. Thunder roared. The baby's eyes opened once more. Wide, dark, and far too knowing for a child. The mother's arm stiffened. The baby turned its head slowly toward her. Its lips curved upward into a small, unnatural smile. The hall filled with whispers, though no one dared to speak. The The smell of lilies grew stronger, overpowering, almost suffocating. Some of the mourners covered their noses, others dropped to their knees. The candles flared again, this time bright, almost blinding. For a moment, everyone could see the baby's small chest rise and fall with unnatural rhythm. And then it laughed. A sound so faint it could have been the creak of a chair, or the echo of something much darker. The mother's tears stopped. Her eyes widened in horror as she realized the laugh came not from her arms, but from somewhere behind her. She turned. The coffin was empty. The priest dropped his cross. A sudden gust of wind blew the windows open, sending the white curtains flapping like wings. The baby's laughter filled the room again, louder now, bouncing off the walls. The lights flickered, and shadows stretched across the faces of the mourners. The baby, no longer in her arms, stood near the coffin, eyes glowing faintly in the candlelight. Its skin looked untouched by death, but its expression was not that of an infant. It stared directly at the mother, head tilted slightly to one side, as if remembering her but not recognizing her anymore. She whispered its name, voice trembling, but the baby did not move. Only the sound of rain answered her. The priest began reciting prayers again, louder, desperate. The windows slammed shut one by one. The hall grew darker, until the only light came from the flickering candles that seemed to shrink away from the baby's form. And then the baby spoke. A voice too deep, too ancient for such a tiny body. "Why did you leave me in the cold?" The mother fell to her knees, clutching her chest. Tears streamed down her face as memories flooded back. The night the baby had stopped breathing, her screams for help, the endless hours of despair. She had buried not only her child, but her faith. And now, it stood before her. The baby took one small step forward. The wooden floor creaked beneath its bare feet. Each step echoed like a heartbeat, slow and deliberate. The priest raised his cross, shouting prayers through the storm of fear, but his voice faltered as the baby turned its gaze toward him. One candle went out, then another. Darkness crept closer, swallowing the light, swallowing the breath of everyone in the hall. The baby stopped in front of its mother. It reached out, touching her cheek with its tiny hand. Her heart raced, warmth again. Real warmth. Her mind screamed that this could not be, yet her body refused to move away. She held the baby close, trembling, whispering apologies into its ear. The hall fell silent. Only the sound of her sobbing filled the air. And then the baby whispered again, softer this time. "Do not cry, mother. You are coming with me." The priest screamed for everyone to leave. The doors flung open, and wind rushed in like a scream from the heavens. The candles blew out, plunging the hall into complete darkness. A blinding flash of lightning illuminated the mother and child one last time, her face pressed against the baby's shoulder, eyes wide with terror and love. When the light faded, they were gone. The coffin lay open and empty on the floor. Rain poured in through the broken windows, washing over the petals of lilies scattered across the ground. The mourners fled into the storm, their cries echoing through the night. But inside the hall, one candle reignited by itself. Its flame burned steady, unmoving, casting a single shadow on the wall. A mother holding her child, forever frozen in an embrace that defied death itself. The single candle flickered weakly, its light trembling as if it too feared the silence that followed. The hall was empty now, empty of voices, yet heavy with presence. Rain whispered against the shattered windows. The air smelled of damp earth and melted wax, mixed with something faintly metallic. On the floor, the priest's silver cross lay twisted, the chain tangled around a wilted lily. He had fled with the others, but his prayers still seemed to echo faintly between the wooden beams. The shadows on the walls moved slowly, stretching and bending, like memories refusing to fade. Then came a faint sound, a heartbeat. Not loud, not steady, but real. It pulsed through the air, deep and sorrowful, as if the hall itself was breathing. Outside, the storm raged, lightning flashing across the sky like veins of fire. Each flash illuminated the coffin, still resting at the center of the room. The lid had fallen sideways, the white cloth inside soaked and torn. Footprints, small, wet and muddy, led from the coffin to the far corner of the hall. And then they stopped. The candle flames stretched tall for a moment, then shrank, trembling harder. A faint whisper came from the dark corner. "Mother." The voice was soft, tender, filled with longing. But beneath it, there was something hollow, like the echo of an old wound that never healed. From the darkness, the figure of the woman slowly emerged. Her white funeral dress clung to her as if the storm itself had wrapped her in sorrow. Her hair was drenched, her face pale, eyes empty of reason. She held something in her arms, something wrapped in the same white cloth that had once lined the coffin. Her steps were slow, deliberate, and her lips moved without sound. When she reached the center of the room, she knelt by the candle. The flame steadied, as if recognizing her presence. She looked down at what she carried, her tears falling silently onto the small bundle. The cloth shifted. A tiny hand reached out, fingers curling in the air like petals searching for sunlight. The mother's breath hitched. Her trembling hand brushed against the baby's cheek, and again warmth. It was real, but there was something else, something deeper. The baby's eyes opened, glistening like pools of midnight. There was no innocence in them. Only sorrow. Only memory. "Do you remember, Mother?" The voice came again, but the baby's lips did not move. The mother froze, her eyes wide. "I waited for you," the voice said, filling the hall. "I called for you in the dark, but you never came." The mother shook her head violently, clutching the baby tighter against her chest. "No," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I did not leave you. I begged for you to stay." Lightning struck again, illuminating her face, pale, haunted, streaked with tears and rain. The baby's body felt heavier now, pressing against her like a stone soaked in grief. The voice turned colder. "You let me sleep in the earth." The mother screamed, her cry piercing through the storm. Her voice carried pain so raw it made the candle flicker violently. "I did not want this," she sobbed. "I wanted you to live." The baby's head turned slightly, eyes fixed on her trembling face. "Then why do you cry only now?" Her heart shattered beneath those words. She felt the world closing in around her, the storm, the silence, the weight of her own guilt crushing her. Memories flooded her mind. The long nights beside the crib, the fever that would not break, the final breath that left her baby's lips while she prayed for a miracle that never came. She had screamed to the heavens that night, begged for the life of her child, promised her soul in exchange. And maybe someone had listened, but mercy had never been promised. Now, the candle dimmed again. The baby's hand gripped her dress, tiny fingers leaving wet marks as they clenched tighter. The voice softened. "Do not be afraid, Mother. I am not alone anymore." From the shadows, another faint cry echoed, a second voice, smaller, distant. Then another, and another. Dozens of whispers filled the hall, overlapping like a chorus of forgotten lullabies. The mother turned slowly, eyes wide with terror. Every corner of the hall seemed alive. Shapes began to form within the darkness, tiny outlines of infants, crawling, reaching, watching. Each pair of eyes gleamed faintly in the candlelight. Some smiled, others cried. Their whispers grew louder, words blending into a haunting rhythm. We waited. We remember. We were left. The mother clutched her baby tighter, rocking back and forth as tears streamed down her face. "I am sorry," she sobbed. "I am so sorry." The voices grew softer again, circling her like wind through broken glass. The baby's head rested against her heart. "Then come with us," the voice whispered. "Come where there is no pain." The candle flame leaned forward, its light stretching toward her face. She stared into it, eyes swollen with sorrow, but strangely calm. Outside, the storm ceased. The rain stopped mid-drop, hanging in the air like suspended tears. The world seemed to hold its breath. And then, the flame went out. Darkness swallowed the hall completely. For a long moment, there was nothing, no light, no sound, no storm. Only silence. Then, faintly, through the quiet, came the sound of a lullaby. A mother's voice, soft and cracked, humming a tune once sung to a child that would never grow old. When morning came, the villagers found the hall empty once again. The coffin was gone. Only a single candle stood upright in the middle of the floor, its wick still warm. And upon the wall behind it, a new shadow had appeared. The figure of a woman holding a child close, her face turned upward, as if whispering a prayer into eternity. When dawn broke, the world outside was painted in gray. Mist rolled through the graveyard like a living thing, curling around the stones as if hiding secrets beneath its folds. The villagers gathered at a distance, whispering among themselves, pointing toward the old funeral hall. No one dared to enter. The doors creaked open slowly with each breath of wind, groaning like something alive. Inside, the air was still heavy with the scent of wax and death. Yet in that silence, there was something else, something alive. A faint sound, a lullaby, echoing from nowhere and everywhere at once. It was the same melody the mother had once sung when her baby cried in the night. Her voice, soft, fragile, trembling with both love and despair. But now it carried a sadness too deep to belong to the living. An old villager, the caretaker of the church, finally gathered the courage to step inside. He held a lantern close to his chest, the light flickering across his wrinkled face. Every step forward echoed like a heartbeat. The floorboards moaned under his weight, and the scent of lilies, old, wilted, yet strong, grew thicker with each breath. When he reached the center of the room, his eyes froze. The candle was still there, its wax pooled like tears across the floor. But it was not alone. Beside it lay a single white ribbon, damp but clean, tied into the shape of a small bough. He bent down slowly, his trembling fingers brushing against the ribbon. It was warm. A chill spread through his bones. He lifted his lantern higher, and in that wavering light, he saw the wall. There it was, the shadow. A woman holding a child, their faces pressed close together. But the longer he stared, the more it changed. The woman's lips moved. The child's hand shifted. And faintly, just faintly, he heard a whisper. "Do not wake him." The caretaker stumbled back, dropping his lantern. The flame sputtered out as it hit the wet floor. Darkness swallowed him. And in that darkness came the sound of small feet pattering across the wooden boards. The rhythm was uneven, playful at first, then faster, heavier. Something brushed past his leg, small, soft, like the hand of a child. His breath caught. He could not move. Then came the laughter. It was faint at first, echoing from the far end of the hall, but soon it grew, twisting into a sound that made his heart seize. The laughter was not human anymore. It was cold, layered, like many voices overlapping, rising and falling in waves. He turned toward the sound, but the darkness had shape now, moving, breathing. A dozen tiny silhouettes appeared between flashes of lightning from the open door. They were crawling, some walking, some dragging themselves across the floor. Their eyes gleamed white in the dark. The caretaker screamed a prayer, clutching his cross. The air around him grew heavy, pressing against his chest until he could barely breathe. And then the whisper returned, all around him. "Mother is here. Do not cry. Sleep." The voices circled him, closer, softer, as if trying to soothe him while tightening an invisible noose around his mind. He stumbled backward, his foot hitting the fallen lantern. Sparks flickered, igniting the spilled wax. A flame burst to life, climbing upward like a desperate breath of light. For a moment, the hall was illuminated.
And he saw them.
The woman stood near the coffin that was no longer there. Her dress was soaked in shadow, clinging to her like smoke. Her face was turned toward him, eyes hollow, yet filled with sorrow so deep it could drown the world. In her arms, the baby lay still, wrapped once again in white cloth. But this time, its small hand hung lifeless, dangling by her side. Her lips parted slowly. "Do not wake him," she whispered again. The fire grew brighter, crackling, devouring the edges of the hall. The caretaker turned and ran, his screams echoing through the dawn. Behind him, the hall burned, the flames swallowing every trace of the night before. The villagers watched from afar, too afraid to move, their faces pale with horror and awe. The fire raged until only ashes remained. When it was over, the storm clouds broke apart, and sunlight fell gently upon the ruins. Yet where the hall once stood, something impossible remained. The shadow on the wall, untouched by flame, untouched by time. Still there, still holding the child. Years passed. The village rebuilt, but no one ever dared to step on the ground where the hall once stood. They said flowers would not grow there, only lilies, white and cold, blooming in the dead of winter. At night, travelers passing through claimed they saw a dim light glowing among the ruins. Some said it was the candle, still burning after all these years. Others said they heard a soft lullaby drifting through the fog, a woman's voice, tender, heartbroken, eternal. The story spread across towns, carried by whispers. A tale of a mother who loved too deeply, a child who was never truly gone, and a night when death itself forgot its place. And even now, when the wind blows through the old cemetery, the air grows colder, and those who listen closely can still hear it. A faint voice singing to the silence. A promise. A prayer. A lullaby that refuses to die. As night fell again upon the silent village, the moon rose high, pale and distant, casting a silver glow upon the ashes of what once was the funeral hall. The mist crept in once more, wrapping the ruins like a shroud. The air was still, yet from somewhere deep within that sacred ground, the faint hum of a lullaby began to stir again. It was soft, tender, almost too fragile to hear, like a memory whispering through time. The melody drifted across the village, touching the hearts of those who listened. Some wept without knowing why. Others closed their doors and prayed. But one little girl, standing near the gate of the graveyard, did not move away. She stood barefoot in the damp grass, eyes wide, listening. The wind brushed her hair gently, carrying the sound closer, each note wrapping around her like a mother's embrace. She stepped forward, slowly, drawn by something she could not explain. In the distance, she saw it, a soft light flickering among the stones. Not fire, not lantern, something else, something living. As she approached, she saw the old candle, still standing where it had been years ago, its flame unbroken, defying the wind and time itself. Beside it, two figures shimmered faintly in the moonlight, a woman cradling a child. They were made of light and shadow, of sorrow and love, of everything the human heart could not name. The woman looked peaceful now. Her eyes were closed, her face calm, as if finally at rest. The baby slept in her arms, breathing softly, without fear. The little girl watched in silence, her heart pounding in her chest. She did not run. She did not scream. She only whispered, "Are you happy now?" And for a moment, the woman's lips moved. A faint smile appeared. A voice, softer than the wind, answered,
Yes.
"He is safe. And love never dies." Then, the light began to fade. The woman and child dissolved into the night air, their forms scattering like petals in the breeze. The candle flickered one last time, then went out. But the warmth it left behind lingered, gentle, eternal. The little girl pressed her hand to her heart. It was beating fast, but it was full of something she had never felt before.
Hope.
She turned toward the village, tears shining in her eyes, and whispered, "She found peace." When morning came, the villagers found her asleep beside the candle's remains. She smiled in her dreams. And though the candle was gone, its scent, soft and sweet, like lilies in bloom, filled the air once more. From that day on, people said the mother and child had finally crossed beyond sorrow. But their love, their bond, still watched over the village in silence. Sometimes, when the wind passed through the trees, one could hear that same lullaby again, gentle, unbroken, filled with the voice of a love that even death could not silence. A love that reminded everyone of what it means to hold on, to forgive, to feel, and to remember. And if you ever visit that village, if you ever walk beneath the quiet moonlight near the old graveyard, listen carefully. You may hear her song, carried by the breeze, wrapping around your soul like a whisper from another world. And when you do, let it remind you that every story, no matter how haunted, is also a story of love. Because love, even in death, never truly fades. It waits. It watches. It remembers. And before you leave this story behind, if it touched your heart even a little, if it made you feel the breath of life and love beyond words, then take a moment and subscribe to this channel. Because here, every story has a heartbeat, every tale breathes, and every whisper tells you that love never dies.